You ever wonder what just one day in the world of tech can tell us about, well, everything? Let's zoom in on April 19th, 2026. Just another Tuesday on the calendar, right? But if you look a little closer, it tells an absolutely wild story about where we are right now, and more importantly, where we're all headed. Let's get into it.
Okay, let's start with this. A number. A big number. $293 million. That was the price tag on the single biggest financial hack of the year. We'll get to how it happened in a minute, but just let that number sink in for a second.
Now, while millions of digital dollars were vanishing into thin air, the rest of the tech world was buzzing about something that sounds like it's straight out of a movie: quantum advantage. This is a massive technological leap, one that promises to completely rewrite the rules of computing as we know it.
And then there's this number, not dollars this time. This is about people. 337,917 individuals whose most personal, private data was suddenly in the hands of criminals. So yeah, on just one day, you've got this incredible story of breathtaking breakthroughs and absolutely devastating breakdowns. So let's dive into our first big theme here, this crazy tension between the digital heists that are happening right now and the future threats that are, frankly, almost hard to wrap your head around. So how in the world does someone steal nearly $300 million in less than an hour? Well, this was an attack on something called Kelp DAO. And, the crazy part is how simple it sounds when you break it down. The attacker basically faked a message between blockchains, which let them create over 100,000 digital tokens out of thin air. Then they used those fake tokens as collateral to borrow $250 million in real assets, and poof, they were gone. The whole thing over and done in just 46 minutes.
And here's where the dominoes really start to fall. The damage didn't just stop with Kelp DAO. The attacker took off with 18% of its entire token supply. And to cash out, they used another big platform, Aave, which caused its token to tank by 14%. It's just a brutal reminder of how connected this whole ecosystem is, and because of that, how incredibly fragile it can be.
Okay, so that's a threat that's very real right now. But what about the threats we can't even properly defend against yet? While hackers are busy exploiting today's code, scientists are building a machine that will just break the entire game. And that's where quantum advantage comes in. It's that tipping point where a quantum computer isn't just a little faster, it's playing a completely different sport. It can solve problems that are literally impossible for even the biggest supercomputers we have today.
And look, this isn't some pie-in-the-sky idea for the 2050s. Look at how fast this is happening. Just a few months before our snapshot day, Google's Willow chip solved a huge error problem. Then IBM basically threw down the gauntlet, saying they'd hit quantum advantage by the end of this very year, 2026. The pace here is just breathtaking.
So here's the bottom line, the thing you really need to get. Everything that keeps our digital world safe, your bank account, your emails, even top government secrets, it's all protected by math problems that are just too hard for normal computers to solve. But for a quantum computer, it's not hard at all. The locks on every digital door, a quantum computer could pick them all, instantly. The entire internet as we know it is fundamentally vulnerable.
Okay, let's switch gears for a second, because it's not just about digital threats in a digital world. The digital world is putting some serious, real-world pressure on the physical one. It's a two-way street, right? On one side, the crazy demand for things like AI is creating actual physical shortages, and on the other, digital attacks are causing very real physical harm.
So back to April 19th. If you were trying to buy a computer processor from Intel or AMD on that day, you were in for some bad news. First up, a 15% price hike. Just bang, overnight.
And if you thought that was bad, get this. The time you'd have to wait to actually get that processor. It went from a few weeks to 6 months.
So what was going on? Welcome to the 2026 CPU crisis. It's pretty simple, really. The AI companies have this bottomless appetite for computing power, and they were basically buying up all the chips before they were even made. This set off a huge crunch in the supply chain that hit everybody, from big PC makers to you and me. The situation was summed up perfectly. High price, no inventory.
But the way our digital lives affect the physical world, it can be a lot more personal than a delayed computer part. And that brings us back to this number, 337,917. This wasn't about hardware. This was about people. Patients at a hospital in Tennessee whose lives were turned upside down by a ransomware attack.
A group called the Riceta ransomware gang stole 0.5 terabyte of the most sensitive data you can imagine: social security numbers, medical diagnoses, bank records, and demanded over $1 million in Bitcoin. But here's the part that is just unbelievable. The attack actually happened way back in July of 2025. The hospital sat on this information for nearly a full year before finally telling its patients that their deepest secrets were out there.
All right, for our last theme, let's lighten it up a bit and talk about the future of how we play and how we get around. Because on this day, we see a perfect example of innovation that's super exciting, but also arriving in a much, much messier way than we were promised.
So, for gamers, April 19th was a huge day. A massive leak from Nintendo dropped revealing the entire launch lineup for the brand new Switch 2. And wow, the list is just incredible. A new Metroid, a new Wario Land, but the real showstopper, the crown jewel? A full-blown, built-from-the-ground-up remake of the legendary Ocarina of Time set to release for the holidays.
The leak also confirmed a major power-up for the console. We're talking about 4 times more powerful when it's docked and twice as powerful when you're playing it handheld. And that's what matters, right? A jump like that is what makes a game like the Ocarina of Time remake possible. We're not just talking about cleaning up the graphics, we're talking a total reimagining.
Now, at the same time, let's look at transportation. On this same day, Tesla was pushing out updates for its robo-taxi features, and the promise here is just massive. Their argument is that their way is safer, using remote operators in the US, and that they can grow way faster and cheaper than competitors like Waymo because they can just update the millions of customer cars already on the road.
But then you pull back the curtain and you see the reality on the ground. The cars still need a safety driver behind the wheel. The service is only available in one city, Austin, Texas. They've already missed their big expansion goals, and meanwhile, their main rival, Waymo, is already up and running in more than a dozen cities. This is what innovation actually looks like in real time, a brilliant, futuristic vision slamming into a very, very complicated reality.
So what do we do with all this? A crypto heist? A quantum arms race? A chip shortage? A hospital held for ransom? A new Nintendo console? And the slow rollout of robotaxis? How on earth does any of this fit together?
Well, when you boil it all down, this one day in tech is telling us a few really big things. First, it's screaming at us that our digital world is built on a foundation that is incredibly fragile. Second, it shows that these abstract ideas like AI have very real, very physical consequences for all of us. Third, every huge leap forward, like quantum computing, creates a new and sometimes pretty scary shadow. And finally, that amazing future we're always being promised, it usually shows up late, and it's almost always messier than we thought.
You know, it really makes you think of that classic quote from William Gibson. On April 19th, 2026, the future was absolutely here. You had a future of AI-driven shortages, of quantum-level threats, of automated cars. But that future felt completely different depending on if you were a crypto trader, a hospital patient, or a gamer waiting for a new Zelda. It's not evenly distributed at all.
And that leaves us with one final big question. We know progress is speeding up like crazy, but as we race ahead, how do we make sure the future we're building isn't just innovative and exciting, but is also secure, stable, and actually reliable for everybody? That right there is the real challenge, isn't it?